Thanks everybody for taking the time. Appreciate it. Going to spend some time with Justin Fogerty and Erika on Talk a Mile program out of Portland, Oregon, one of our new sites. We also want to welcome Cheryl, who's also one of our new sites from Schenectady, New York. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin. Is that correct? We're going to Justin next, Tanner. So Justin Fogerty and his wife Erika have put together Talk a Mile. We went out to Portland to see this relationship between young people and law enforcement, particularly recruits who are in the academy, and the dialogue and the conversation that takes place to enhance and better understanding. They're great community organizers. It's fun to be around them, to hear their story and to hear their voice in this work. And I'm going to turn it over to Justin, and he's going to give a presentation on Talk a Mile. I think this is a program that could be easily replicated. And Talk a Mile is willing to help us think that through and how to do that. And Justin will talk about they're already expanding to Denver and to Seattle, I believe, and possibly some other sites. But this would be a great project or an activity to really engage youth. And it certainly feeds into the deflection model that we're talking about. So, Justin, anything you want to add to your introduction, feel free to do so. I'm going to turn it over to you and to Erika. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody being here and making the time. So I'm Justin. As you see, my wife Erika is here as well. We're in different. I happen to be up in Seattle actually for a couple days. Headed back to Portland later today, but coming to you from there while Erika is in Portland. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can go through the slides. Everybody see those? All right. Great. So we started this organization in 2020. Erika, myself, our son Liam, and my brother Sean. And I'll get into a little bit about the hows and the whys and kind of where we are at this point. And then really looking forward to taking some questions and talking through things after we wrap up here with a few slides. So a little bit about Portland, some of the data about it. It is widely known, and people remind us of this constantly, that it is the whitest major city in America. In total, the Black population of the city is about 7.9%, and that includes in the demographic data not only the people that check the Black box within that the census data, but also additional ethnicities and races. So that's kind of the large bucket of the way that you would look at the Black population of the city. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that 7.9% is actually it's a pretty significant number. It's 51,816 Black Portlanders. So that's sometimes lost in that narrative of it's a really white city when you kind of don't really take into account, well, okay, but what does that actually mean? So I think it's something important to keep in mind. As far as narratives about Portland go, I think you're probably all familiar with what we've heard about Portland in the last few years. When we started the organization in 2020, all the way up through today, a lot of what you see about the city is kind of pointed at these things that are obviously negatives when you're describing a place: anarchy, chaos, violence, total lawlessness, carnage, all sorts of things. This is actually some of the words that I had ChatGPT pull from Fox News headlines over the last couple of years about Portland. So kind of a word cloud of that. And I don't think Fox is unique in this. I'm not trying to pick on them or anything either. But that's sort of been the narrative, and it's sort of what we've been through our work, hopefully trying to change those things, because I don't think those narratives are always correct. It's also an important data point, I think, that out of the 50 largest cities in the US, we are 48th in terms of the ratio of the population to the number of police officers that we have, which is, the data's way of saying that our police bureau is very, very understaffed. And I can attest to this personally from doing a ride along last year, just very, very understaffed, which makes it really difficult for the police to actually try to do any of the kind of community engagement work that the city does say that they do want, that the population says that they do want. And kind of to that point, the city itself, the population is very, very interested in police accountability. And in fact, voted through a police accountability commission a couple of years ago at 82%. So that does sort of tell you a little bit about, I think from the data, what our city looks like, and kind of the forces, the prevailing narratives, and the things that we're kind of up against, or that we're trying to figure out, how to tease these out and how to make them turn them more into the positive, and really try to change some of these narratives. So the key challenges that we face in the community, trust in the police is a huge one. As you see, 82% voting for a police accountability commission. That really does speak to things. I think it's quite clear living in the city that there is quite a bit of tension, and quite a bit of tension between the police, and just a kind of a lack of trust from the community oftentimes to the police. But then that doesn't exactly manifest itself sometimes in positive ways to overcome that. And in our minds, there's simply not enough conversation. As you've probably seen from the headlines or the news clips and things too, conversation might be a generous way of describing the way that this goes. Sometimes it's kind of loud. It's a lot of screaming. It's a lot of it's a lot of tension there, but not necessarily a whole lot of listening. Not necessarily a whole lot of engagement, which we feel like is a huge opportunity. And on top of that too, I think this is something that I think a dynamic that we see is, even when there are conversations, who's invited to those conversations? Is it the right folks that are actually invited to these conversations, the one that might have the most to gain or lose, or might have the most ideas or anything about them? So again, somewhere where we're trying to make an impact. And then finally, a challenge for us is, I suspect this is probably the case everywhere, civic engagement is difficult, especially when we're talking about young people. Oftentimes the organizations, be they nonprofits, businesses, or government entities, have a hard time figuring out how to even connect with those young people and pull them in and try to get them engaged. Which we think is a real opportunity if we can crack that code. And again, that's something we're trying to do through our work. So where are we in the journey at this point? We put ourselves kind of in this organized section of it. We have really started to do some of the listening. We've started to bring people together. We've started to have these conversations, and we've tried to collect as much data as we can about the impact of those, and the kinds of conversations and the kind of things that people want to be able to talk about to try to get through and have better relationships and better trust. But we know that we've got a long ways to go. We've approached this right from the beginning, both as people that have spent some time in startups, as kind of a startup, right? A startup in this world or in this space. But we know that we are very early in the journey, but we're learning a lot. We're trying to make trying to do the best that we can to try to work with everything we can, take advantage of every opportunity to bring other people into these conversations too, and really kind of learn and pivot and make adjustments to the programming and the way that we approach things and the impact that we can have in the community. Okay, so what do we do? Well, our work actually connects some of these young leaders with local police trainees, and they do literally walk and talk together. They have a one-on-one conversation over the course of a mile. And I'm going to share a few of the stats that we're seeing from the data, and we can take it to the questions after that. But one of the things that we're really proud of, I think, at this point, is since our first Talk a Mile that we had in April of 2022, every single new officer in the Portland Police Bureau has been through the program. So that's all the cohorts that go through what in Portland is called Advanced Academy. Advanced Academy is that stage of the police training when they come back to Portland from the state academy where they do basic. But this is something, again, that we're really proud of and trying to build off of to expand to other areas in the Portland metro, as well as Jim mentioned, Denver and potentially Seattle and some other cities too. Okay, one of the questions that we asked through our survey data is, did people feel like they were seen and heard through the experience? And really happy to say that we're at 98% on that. And that's both from the law enforcement side as well as from the students and community members who have participated too, which we just think is a really important metric to keep track of. And I think equally as important, especially when it comes to the young people who participate in this program entirely voluntarily, would they recommend it to a peer? Circling back to who's invited to these conversations, and that idea of community engagement or civic engagement for young people, we think that these seen and heard and would recommend to a peer are data points that really do speak to that impact and really do speak to that there is a hunger for this. There's a hunger for it from these young folks who actually do really want to get engaged in these conversations around community. And they embrace this opportunity to do so, and they would recommend it to other peers of theirs as well. But data is great, but I know oftentimes participant quotes and some of the testimonials and things, some of the takeaways and learnings are even more important. So I'll give you a second to take this one in. And we've got another one here from a student leader that I'll give you a second to read as well. Oh, a little context on this photo too. This was an event that we did at a Blazer game last year where we invited past participants as well as some civic leaders. That tall, handsome gentleman on the right is Liam, and you see Erika over here as well. But they're speaking with the Assistant Chief of Police, Chuck Lavelle, who was actually the Chief of Police, but then resigned from being Chief to take on a community engagement role. So he's been a great champion for us and is actually featured in this next photo, participating in Talk a Mile himself, where he was walking and talking with a young student, Emma Daniels, who's actually just started her first year at Penn. This was one of our favorite quotes that we've received through the work so far. This was from the survey for the very first Talk a Mile we did in April of 2022. And as all of you know, with your program, when you first get to take it out into the world, it's a super exciting but scary day, right? What is going to happen? How is this going to go? And we definitely were going through all those emotions and just making sure that everybody had a positive experience and that it was impactful. So obviously later that day, when we start digging into survey data and see something like this, we thought, maybe we're onto something. And just definitely helps inspire us to keep going with the work. So that's all I've got in terms of the slides. Happy to jump into questions, any of the questions you got for myself or for Erika. Jim, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
No
Justin,
problem.
I probably should have mentioned this. I may have mentioned it sooner, but in Seattle, the acting chief of police, Sue Rohr, is on our national advisory board and was on the President's Task Force for 21st Century Policing, which we facilitated, and a very close friend. If you need me to do any introductions, you may have already done it, but I just wanted to.
I haven't connected at that level, so I would definitely like to take you up on that, Jim.
Okay, we'll talk.
Yeah. I think we're engaged with some of the right folks there, but it's always good to keep connecting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just going to jump in again, just such a, joy to be here, seeing faces, being a part of the Act Now community. For me, what was most meaningful about forming Talk a Mile is just, on the heels of the summer of 2020, again, Portland made the news headlines for just the continuing protests, but that really just showed the degree of activism, especially among youth. And, for many of them, it was their first time participating in a protest, their first time using their voices for social change, but a lot of us were just wondering, what's next. And so Talk a Mile really was that opportunity to translate that activism into action and to show that, the momentum can continue. It just takes ongoing conversation so that, these voices, especially youth voices, can continue to be heard. And again, we do focus primarily on Black and now also Latino students as well. So just a really great opportunity to keep that momentum going.
Any questions for Justin? We'll post the slides and his contact information for any of you who may want to look at replicating the project. And it's pretty straightforward. And the facilitation, they developed facilitation questions that are actually used by the academy and by the student participants. So this isn't just a wide open conversation, it's a guided conversation.
Yeah, we're actually integrated into their trainings, especially for, again, the recent academy graduates. So that it's about 2 weeks before they officially join the force. They have a week where they kind of wrap up their trainings. And so, yeah, every new cadet does a Talk a Mile event.
Good.
But yes, please reach out. We'd love to connect with you all and just continue to learn from you, everyone.
We're excited to have you with us.
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the time. Yeah, as Erika said, please reach out. Happy to talk more.